vibe, so that we would reflect the movement which brought together women from all walks of life. And so Helena Bonham Carter felt like an exciting woman to throw into the mix. She also happened to be the great-granddaughter of Asquith, who was the Prime Minister at the time, who was the nemesis, you know, the enemy of the suffragettes, which was kind of fascinating. And but she was very excited. And her grandmother, Violet Asquith, who was the adored eldest daughter, also was against the suffragettes. So there was Helena sort of throwing stones, so to speak, at her own grandfather. And we were the first film to film in the House of Commons, which was very exciting. And so Helena was there, you know, again making history in the place where her grandfather had been the Prime Minister. But the rest of the cast, I mean, we were really excited also to get, well, obviously Meryl, and that was, you know, she only ever had this one sequence in the film because we were very intent to tell the story of working women and only view this icon through the eyes of Maud. But we wanted an icon to play an icon, and we, you know, again, Abi knew Meryl from having worked on The Iron Lady, but it was Carey who brought her name up again, and we felt like we'd approach her and it'd be a dream come true. And she responded really, really quickly and enthusiastically, and she's been a great ambassador for us since seeing the finished film, and that's great. And the men too couldn't have been more supportive. You know, Brendan Gleeson, who plays the policeman, was wonderful, and he said he'd never been on such a happy estrogen-filled set. But he was really, and Ben Wishaw is just, again, Abi knows him from The Hour, but is another delight, and Romola Garai. So we, you know, there was a great sense of camaraderie, and it really was wonderful for me to be so supported by such a strong female and male cast.
And I'm going to open it up in a minute, but it's very rare that we have a director join us. Quite often a star from the film or talent from the film will come. So I'd love to learn from you, what was the most challenging scene to actually shoot, besides probably every scene? But was there a moment where you just said, I don't know if I can get this shot, or this is too... What was the hardest part of shooting this?
It's a really good question, and you know, to be honest, I was terrified quite a lot of the time, because it was a big...
Your day with Meryl?
That, definitely. The days with Meryl, we had 3 nights, and I remember walking into her trailer to rehearse, and she was sort of surrounded by everybody, and Anne-Marie whispered, "Are you very intimidated?" But I just went into this zen state with Meryl, and she's also very generous and very ordinary, you know, around people. She's very levelling and great, but in a way,
how great is she?
No, she's brilliant. I mean, and also she stands for, you know, she's got such good values, and so just she believed in it on all sorts of levels, and that was really important in this project, the passion that you know, that everybody had about telling this story and how important it was, and not only relevant to, you know, relevant to women all across the world from all different, you know, in all different backgrounds. So we wanted to make it feel relevant. But in terms of the most challenging thing, I think the Derby was one of the, you know, it was really, really challenging. And we had 4 cameras rolling, and we had horses and stunts and lots of supporting artists and you know, visual effects and special effects, and so there were layers upon layers there. But in a way, the emotional scenes were the hardest, and the one with Carey and the little boy, because we had to prioritise filming the little boy, and he was such a sensitive little boy that we couldn't rehearse with him because he wept every time he thought about it. Yeah, and he even wept in the read-through, and you know, he was such a sweet little boy. Yeah, and so thoughtful, and so we had a little tunnel from the set to his mum, so that after every take he could run into his mum's arms, and then I'd give him this little pep talk about how it was fiction, and you know, and there was his mum, and she loved him, and then he'd go back into it again, and feel it all over again. So yeah, that was trying.
Thank you. Okay, audience, I don't want to hog the brilliant writer and director, so please, let's start in the back. Yes.
You just said it was fiction. I was curious. Obviously, the main story itself was nonfiction, but how was her story based on anything in truth?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
It was. I mean, her story was based on 2 or 3 women's stories that I had read. One was a very tragic story of a woman who had lost 2 of her children, and that her husband had declared her insane. And then the amalgam of women came from all kinds of different places. I mean, I found the character of Edith Ellen was very moving to me because I had a grandmother who, a great grandmother who got a place at Cambridge but couldn't take it, and she never became educated, and she watched everyone around her became educated, and so I think So I feel like actually there was an eclectic mix within that. But in terms of, I always tried to find a model. There's nothing in there that there wasn't the model for.
Actually, then can I ask one tiny other thing? I was curious how the woman had learned to read since she had started at the laundry at age 7.
Well, you would have still carried on going to school until you were 12, part-time.
Got it.
And actually, originally when I wrote her, she was illiterate. But we realised that one of the things that was very key to it was the access that the women had got to literature and important literature of the time. And so it limited her too much as a character for us to do that. But it certainly would be true of the time that a number of the women would be illiterate. And that was one of the appeals of the movement, was that actually it also educated the women, and many of these women learned how to read and write as a result of joining the movement.
Like a historian probably after this. You know, you could do lectures on the time period and everything. Yeah, in the back. Sorry, Ethel. Where's that? Oh no. Who had their hand up? Priscilla, yes.
It's really staggering in the credits to see those dates of other countries, including us, receiving women's rights to vote so much later. As this really is a contemporary issue for so much of the planet, what are you hoping this film will do from a social justice perspective?
Well, we very much hope it speaks to audiences today. I mean, as we were developing it, you know, although it's been an untold story for 100 years and it's overdue, it strangely seemed to become more timely as we were hearing this resurgence, partly because of social media and the anonymity of that, but in voices of women all over the world challenging repression. And that was, you know, from Malala Yousafzai to, you know, there was a brilliant documentary called India's Daughter about Jyoti Singh being raped and murdered, and you realise how many echoes it has. And we had a Jamaican woman in the audience for a brief taste-maker thing we did, who said it echoed with her experiences in the workplace. And so we hope that it reaches out to people and that it can be used as a starting point for discussion, because I think, you know, and the more it provokes discussion, the better. I think, and shines a light on it. I mean, anything anybody can do. And I think the thing about a campaign like this, and what you realise with modern day activists, is that it can work on so many levels. You know, you can do the tiny act, you can tell your daughter a story, and that's important, or you can do a bigger act, and it's about all those accumulated actions and awareness that are so important. And I hope that, you know, we've been contacted by quite a number of groups, so we'll just try and use that as much as possible for good.
And some mothers actually brought their young daughters today, which I think is really, really great, and I'd be curious to hear after from them to see if it moved them or have them thinking about this. Okay, sorry, yes, in the back.